When it comes to Cardano and Ethereum's development releases, there seems to be a common theme taking place. Take yourself back to a similar time last year. Cardano was on the verge of finally delivering smart contract functionality. However, the mainstream crypto news were heavily focused on ETH 2.0, billed as an upgrade that will make Cardano's smart contract release irrelevant. So how did this play out? Well, Cardano did in fact deliver smart contract functionality, yet ETH 2.0 never materialized. What we witnessed in the months after this release was an onslaught of criticism and claims that Cardano's smart contracts were a failure, with barely any DApps and inaccurate reporting of failed transactions and network congestion. Now fast forward to August 2022, with over 1,000 projects building, smooth transaction execution, and a whole range of game-changing projects on the cusp of launching, we are seeing a very familiar scenario play out. Cardano is seemingly on the verge of the most significant upgrade, arguably in the history of blockchain. There is definitely an attempt to overshadow this in the media and amongst crypto communities, with Ethereum's promise of the merge to proof of stake. But if the merge does indeed happen in the coming weeks or months, this is not going to solve the high gas fees, and is certainly not delivering the superior staking features we have on Cardano. Be prepared post Vasil for similar criticism to come our way. Whilst the competitors on the surface won't notice the true significance of the new capabilities Vasil will bring, under the hood, Cardano is going to become a completely different beast. When I see all the progress made in the last year, it's not hard to imagine how far the Cardano ecosystem is going to evolve 12 months from now. Welcome back for today's installment of Cardano Insights, delivering a fast-paced, bite-sized roundup of the all-important Cardano news and ecosystem content from the past 72 hours. So join me as I explore exactly what's been happening at the very pulse of Cardano. So let's get straight into it. Now, I may be way off in my analysis here, but I'm just putting forward my take on what I've witnessed play out over the past year or so in terms of Cardano and Ethereum's development releases. I wanted to just discuss a little deeper and elaborate slightly on what I laid out in the intro to this video. When you take a moment to think about how the events last year with ETH 2.0 and Cardano's Alonso hard fork played out, there are some uncanny resemblances in terms of the lead up to these highly anticipated events to what we're experiencing now with the merge and Vasil. The way ETH 2.0 was so heavily publicised but resulted in it never occurring, you can't help but wonder if announcing ETH 2.0 pretty much coinciding with the Alonso hard fork was just an elaborate attempt to take the shine off the fact that Cardano was indeed maturing with the release of smart contracts into something posing a far greater risk to the Ethereum ecosystem than they'd like to admit. I'm pretty confident that developers working on ETH 2.0 at the time would have been very aware of how viable ETH's move to proof of stake was going to be in the timeframe previously put out there. At that stage, the general consensus amongst the ETH community and mainstream media was that ETH 2.0 is coming, and it would pretty much make Cardano's smart contract release irrelevant. But when we analyse how things really played out, we did indeed get smart contracts, which marked the very beginnings of our DApp ecosystem, and ETH, while they completely scrapped 2.0, didn't manage to move to proof of stake, and opted for a completely new development track in the merge. I think it's important to reflect on this, as if indeed it was a strategic move to lessen the impact that the Alonso hard fork would have on their community, then you would have to say that it served them well in some respects. This promise of ETH 2.0 definitely played down the significance of Alonso, but yet after Cardano delivered and ETH did not, new narratives were formed focusing on how congested the network became after the launch of SundaySwap and failed transactions experienced in the first few weeks of delivery. But for us within the Cardano ecosystem, we were well aware that this would be the case, as if you remember this was pre-announced, with incremental optimizations implemented over a period of time. The congestion and transaction speed execution was improved week on week. But this narrative of a failed smart contract release, even to this day, has many believing that there are no DApps, no smart contracts, and nobody's building on Cardano. Now, when I look at the current state of play, whilst it's very possible the ETH merge to proof of stake will be happening in the coming weeks or months, I equally wouldn't be surprised to see Cardano deliver the Vasil upgrade and the ETH merge to get further delayed. Just putting it out there. As I've covered many times on this channel, Vasil, other than the delays, has rarely hit the mainstream headlines for the right reasons. Obviously, we all want and need Vasil to be confirmed as soon as possible, which I'm confident we will at some point in August or early September. And when we do, be prepared for similar narratives to form surrounding it being a failure of some kind. Remember, Vasil isn't going to change the Cardano landscape immediately. It's going to take time for DApps and developers to utilise the new enhancements and or deploy new protocols as the ecosystem continues to get built out. It's almost as if Ethereum is again playing some kind of development race with Cardano, intent on stealing the headlines and reducing the impact of Vasil. But Cardano isn't participating in this race. It develops at its own pace, is on a completely different path in what it's actually setting out to achieve, and in turn has a completely different strategy for adoption that is irrelevant to whether or not the Ethereum ecosystem one day decides to migrate over to Cardano. Cardano isn't trying to convince anyone currently in the crypto space to aid its adoption, but is instead focused on delivering an undeniable product of change built on first principles that will be best placed to attract new users from governments, institutions, corporations, all the way to the unconnected and unbanked. The crypto space, whilst evolving, is still a highly under-adopted technology. Focusing on retaining or migrating existing crypto users is insignificant when you think about the billions of people who are yet to even understand, let alone adopt crypto and blockchain technology around the world. So let's see how the coming weeks progress in respect to Vasil and the merge, and in the aftermath we'll be sure to revisit this topic in more detail to see if Sapien's outlandish conspiracy theory can be backed up with any more hard evidence. So if you remember, a few weeks back we covered the Utah politician January Walker and the recent impact she'd been making over Twitter with her pro-blockchain narrative, which also caught the attention of Charles, the Cardano community, and saw many reaching out in support of her efforts. Now, when we think about adoption, and specifically wider adoption of those that are currently outside of the crypto space, one of the key drivers for this is going to be good regulation and governments themselves adopting the technology. This will expose much larger populations to interact with blockchain systems, and also go a long way in making mainstream populations more confident, or at least become less skeptical when it comes to crypto technologies. Well, this weekend we got this Twitter space courtesy of ADAO, who had January Walker feature as a guest to discuss crypto technologies and blockchain policies. I thought this was a really interesting space, and it definitely went a long way in finding out a little more on her stance on how governments can utilise blockchain technology, and also understand exactly what she's campaigning for when it comes to the regulation. So some of the highlights that came out of the discussion for me was her focus on introducing self-sovereign identity with DIDs, the removal of human error in transparent voting, supply chain management, the amount of money that's going to be saved as a result, and the CO2 emissions reduced with the implementation of these systems. She put forward a compelling argument that was very refreshing to hear coming from a politician, and I would say at this stage, I definitely think she's an actor that has good intentions. But the part that stuck out for me most was her comments on the fundamental need to have individuals who are pioneering this technology at the table when regulation is formed. Currently, for the most part, regulation is being formed without input of any significance coming from the crypto space itself. We need the people that really know what it is we're working with, and that's her biggest concern. In addition, she doesn't believe government should be deciding on what is a security or commodity, and instead, a more cautious approach is needed here. Rather than looking at taxation as the main talking point or driver for regulation, a coalition of blockchain representatives is needed to guide governments through the process. Whilst the efforts of one Utah politician isn't going to solve the problems we're facing with the regulators overnight, it has to be said she definitely seems to be taking the right approach in forming that bridge between the government and the blockchain space, with focus on a more inclusive process that will lead to a far more positive outcome as we journey down the road to regulatory clarity. If you want to listen back, I've linked the space in the description below. Now, we've spoken about how mass adoption is going to come longer term and as a result of new entrants from outside of the blockchain space, but shorter term, the utility and opportunity presented by DeFi solutions will definitely form the basis for activity to increase in the Cardano ecosystem. So right now, whilst we have DEXs, yield farming, some basic DeFi products available on Cardano, to cause a real shift in users being attracted to an ecosystem purely from a DeFi point of view, there is a need for innovation to capture the attention from users across both the DeFi and traditional finance world. This is why I personally see the arrival of Maladex being a significant catalyst in making Cardano a highly attractive proposition for users currently outside of the ecosystem. Check this tweet out from over the weekend. Yarek from Maladex gave us this further tease: real story, to have proper trading, we must have proper trading platforms first, soon. This referencing the arrival of Maladex. When he says proper trading platform, it's referencing the trading tools that Maladex promises to bring to the ecosystem. For example, programmable swaps for automated strategy execution like DCA, synthetic instruments, crypto derivatives like option trading, covered calls and collateralized trades, the elimination of all impermanent loss and increased capital efficiency. Maladex promises to deliver tools that today are not made available to the average trader, Now I'm purely speculating here, but I think this is going to have a much bigger impact, leading to an inflow of new users to utilise these new tools and leverage the opportunity they present. With a big announcement coming out from the DEX at some point this month, and the DEX launch drawing nearer, I'll definitely be monitoring closely the impact their introduction has on the Cardano DeFi ecosystem post-arrival. In addition, later this month I'll do a deeper dive on Maladex and some of the other major projects launching on Cardano soon, with a look at the tech and utility each of them bring to the table. So that's it for Monday's instalment of Cardano Insights, as we keep track of all things Cardano and spread those positive vibes. I hope you enjoyed today's video and found value in the content, and if you did, please be sure to comment, share, like and subscribe to the channel. We'll be back tomorrow with your daily roundup. Until then, thanks for watching, have a great day, and as always, keep it Cardano.